everybody. Welcome to our Midas Letter RAW show again here. It's me and Special Ed Milewski over there.
Yeah, Chester.
And yeah, got a really big show today. As we speak right now, Wayland is halted.
Wayland's halted. We don't know why.
We don't know why.
Why?
Why? I don't know. Let's find out why. We have quite a show lined up today. We have people coming.
People going.
People going from all over the world. No, we're going to talk to Todd Harrison at 3:15. That's funny, I just met a guy in the elevator coming up here who said, "Oh, I love your show, especially when Todd Harrison's on," so he's going to be happy. His name was Matt. Anthony Durkacz is going to be here. He's going to be not from First Republic Capital today. He's going to be from World Class Extracts.
I had my pump hat with me this morning as I drove to the train station, but I left it in the car.
Oh, no.
I should have wore it.
You should have. And then at 4:05, we're going to talk to Rob Hill from Health Therapeutics. Haven't seen him in a while. Of course, Ed and James will be doing charts till the cows come home.
We're going to look at Planet 13.
Oh, yeah, let's pull up. Let's start with Planet 13. Seems to be on a bit of a tear.
Yeah,
right?
it's had a hell of a move.
What's going on there?
Well, I guess they came out and said that for the month of March, they did $5.5 million U.S. revenue out of that store, which is a record. 5 point something million. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to say it's 5.5 because the second digit escapes me.
All right.
All right. So let's just take a look.
I don't see Planet 13 in the news here at all.
288. Up 13 cents. It was as high as 307. Look at this.
It's on fire.
This thing was $1.80 2 weeks ago. Now that's what I call return on investment.
Actually, Ed, you want to know why it's honking like that? It's because of the earnings report yesterday.
Yeah, well, they just said that for the month of March they did 5 point something, and they went back and looked at every month. It's just going up, up, up. The average person that goes in there spends about $90.
Really?
That's what they're saying.
$90?
Yeah.
Wow. That's,
what do you think of that? Look at this. Look at this. You see again a base. See that?
Yeah.
Look at that.
I see it all.
Nice, predictable, and then break out of that base. You buy it. Close your eyes for 3 days, you sell it, you take that money, you go down to the store and you spend it. And then stock goes up higher again.
And the money just keeps going around.
It's a big circle, right?
Yeah.
A big circle.
Well, actually, so it's interesting.
Look at the
volume. Yeah. November 2018, they had 1,405 customers per day on average. December 2018, they go up to 429 customers per day on average. January 2019, 1,552 customers per day on average. February, 1,716.
Right.
And March was almost 2,000 clients per day average, spending $5.5 million in top line.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's one facility.
Yeah.
And there's other facilities out there.
But the interesting thing is, and I think this is why the stock's on fire, is the average spend per customer, which we like to call RPU, revenue per user, in November 2018 was $79.73. Fast forward 6 months to March 2019, the average revenue per user is $89.17. So
yeah,
$10 higher, just over 10% higher.
Just a snick under 90.
Just a smidge under the
snick.
A smidge.
Snick.
Snidge.
Snick.
Smidgen. What's the long word? What's the long form of snick?
Snickeroo.
Snickeroo. God damn it. Anyways, here's Ricky Gerwitz with the news.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
She wasn't ready.
She wasn't ready. She looked ready.
1, 2, 3. Here's Ricky Gerwitz with the news.
Here are the headlines moving markets today. Aurora Cannabis Inc. has appointed Carrie Squires as its Executive Vice President of Corporate Development and Strategy. In this newly created role reporting to the executive chairman, Mr. Squires will focus on global growth and partnership strategies and investor development. Mr. Squires comes to Aurora with global investment banking experience, having most recently served as managing director and co-head of equity-linked capital markets for BMO Capital Markets. Village Farms International has entered into a $20 million agreement with Beacon Securities Limited. Beacon Securities, as lead underwriter, has agreed to purchase on a bought deal basis 1 million common shares in the capital of the company at a price of $20 per offered share for aggregate gross proceeds to the company of $20 million. The closing of the offering is expected to occur on or about April 18, 2019. The company intends to use the net proceeds for growth capital needs of the company's US hemp business. AgriFlora Organics International and Relay Medical Corp have announced the execution of a binding letter of intent to bring their cannabis technology joint venture public. Glow Life Tech Limited will be made public by way of reverse takeover. In December 2018, the partners jointly announced the formation of Glow to identify and develop technologies within the global cannabis sector. Ianthus Capital Holdings Inc. announced a licensing agreement with Placeva. Placeva is a woman-owned, Maryland-based company specializing in producing and distributing medical cannabis products specifically formulated for women. As per the licensing agreement, Ianthus will manufacture, market, and sell a variety of Placeva products in its markets, with initial launch in Maryland scheduled for April 20th, 2019. Trulieve Cannabis Corp. has signed an agreement with California-based Blue River Extracts and Terpenes to bring their terpene extracts and other branded products to Florida's patient base. Harvest Health and Recreation announced the opening of its first California cannabis dispensary in Napa. Pending finalization of a recent acquisition of Verano Holdings, Harvest will hold licenses for the right to operate more than 200 retail and processing facilities in 16 states and territories across the U.S. C21 Investments Inc. announced unaudited revenue of $5.1 million for the 2 months ending on March 31st, 2019. This amount reflects revenue from the company's operations in Nevada and Oregon. Unaudited gross margin is estimated to be 60%. And that's your news for today.
Quite the array of news today, wouldn't you say?
You know what? Every day it's news.
The Economist has published a big story on cannabis today.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
About the industrial cannabis boom in China. Now, this is the interesting thing. So, this is the thing about cannabis and hemp, is essentially they are both cannabis sativa or some cultivar hybrid derivative thereof. Now, in this article of The Economist, the title is Industrial Cannabis is Booming in China. And then it says, hemp stocks reach an all-time high. So, and this is the problem I have with this whole idea of categorizing hemp as a separate plant than cannabis. It's basically the same thing.
Is cannabis and hemp the same thing?
Exactly the same thing. The United States and others have inflicted a definition that says if the cannabis sativa plant that you are growing produces less than 0.3% THC, then it is hemp. But if it produces more than 0.3% THC, it is cannabis. And this has caused all this confusion, which I think I'm glad to see that The Economist is using hemp and cannabis interchangeably, because that's actually the way it is. Though, I'd have in the current definition, you can't say industrial cannabis, because that's just...
So what is industrial cannabis? Is that cannabis for
That's cannabis that is working its goddamn ass
that you can sell?
Well, it's cannabis that is working. It's working cannabis. Like it's not fun, happy party cannabis. It's working cannabis.
Like women in the workforce is working woman.
That's right. And
so
industrial cannabis is
in
like
the workforce is working cannabis.
Canvas. Canvas is made from hemp. That's working cannabis right there. Working cannabis, industrial hemp, or industrial cannabis, working hemp. Work in progress, progressively, incrementally.
Progressively conservative.
Inconsequential, interchangeable. I think we've got to the point
where
we're saying...
I got an idea for those two women that got turf from the Liberal caucus. Oh. They should join the Conservatives. Just to...
No, come on.
No, think about it.
Join the Conservatives?
Yeah, wouldn't that be... That would really...
That would screw up the Conservatives.
No.
No, you don't think so? Well, I think what they should do is they should...
start their own party?
They should sue the Liberals for a leadership convention. I don't know if this is possible under the way the rules are. You know, these are
But they
politicians'
have their own,
rules designed by politicians.
Yeah, they have their own rules.
Exactly.
They don't
different
pay,
reality.
Politicians don't pay taxes.
No, they don't.
No.
They take the taxes and they put it in their jeans.
Yeah.
How do they do that?
Well,
is that the definition of a politician is somebody who collects the taxes and spends it themselves?
Yeah.
You know, I think that Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott, honestly, so there goes the brain trust of the entire Liberal Party, and there goes the integrity, heart and soul of the Liberal Party. So technically, they are the Liberal Party in exile. And Justin Trudeau is essentially the equivalent of not only Donald Trump, but also of Maduro in Venezuela. He's the illegitimate leader. And it'll take us possibly until October to prove that, where the population will, in fact, express the desire to remove the mandate to govern. But until then, it looks like their corrupt stranglehold on the Canadian political process is so thorough that we are stuck with this guy until October. But fear not, we will remind everybody on a daily basis that the guy sitting at the helm of the spaceship in Ottawa is actually
Captain Kirk.
Captain Kirk. No, I think he's actually one of the Furbles. Anyways, more on that story tomorrow, because we will not give it up.
Okay.
In 3 minutes, we're going to talk to Todd Harrison.
Okay.
Now, Todd runs CB1 Capital Management, and CB1 Capital has a very long-term view of the market. They are long-term players, and he's been very bullish lately on US MSOs, and has in fact expressed his progress in moving more money into US MSO stories as opposed to and away from the Canadian mature ones. Now, I wonder if the US MS. Oh, there he is there.
Speaking of.
Okay, tell you what, we won't have an intro. I'll just be talking about you, and boom, you'll appear. I'm really going.
Attention.
I know. Everything is going to be unconventional from now on. If we want to talk to Craig, we won't call him up and invite him. We'll just start talking about him, and boom, there he is. How does this happen?
Who the fuck is Craig? Come on, man. Come on.
I met a guy in the elevator just now, Todd. I was downstairs for a cheeseburger, and he says to me, he says, you know, I love watching your show, and he says, I especially love it when Harrison's on. And I'm like, oh, you mean Craig? And he's like, Craig? Who's Craig? And you know, since that day, I still have like some mental issue where, I don't know, in my one part of my feeble little brain, it keeps calling you Craig. Don't worry, I'll get over it. I got to up the dosage of CBDs, I think. Anyways, Todd, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing today? It's good to see you back. You haven't been in your seat in a while. I don't know what you do most of the days, but it's good to have you back.
Well, actually, I was down in California meeting with all kinds of different dispensaries and a few cultivators and a few extractors, and we also shot our first Midas Letter RAW from the YouTube studio in Los Angeles. So, nice. One of the questions now that you've reminded me for you is, how difficult is it for you to get to Manhattan? Are you far from Manhattan, downtown Manhattan?
No, it's about a 35-minute, 40-minute train. Is it right across the street's a train station there?
Okay, great. Because soon we're going to be coming to your neighborhood, probably in the next couple weeks. But I'll keep you posted.
Terrific. And this is the interview, I guess. We could do this all offline, you know, James. And
you know, believe it or not, Todd, this is what people actually enjoy about our platform, is the fact that it's not all business all the time, and you never know what you're going to get here. You might just be listening in on a conversation from a couple of guys who ran into each other in the hallway. You never know. Anyways, Todd, I want to start with the conversation with an overview of, let's just call it the superior performance of U.S. issuers on the Canadian exchanges relative to Canadian issuers. Certainly you've been an advocate for the preference towards the US MSO story relative to the Canadian story, just because the Canadian story is longer in the tooth relative to the US MSO story, and there's so much more money in the United States. At this point today, does that hold true at this outset of Q2?
Well, that's not necessarily the only reason why we prefer the multi-state operators. I mean, we've spoken a lot about the artificial impediments in the U.S. market and why these companies have to go to Canada to list. U.S. institutions, we think, are clamoring at the gates to get involved in the space. And a large part of our preference for U.S. operators is that asymmetry that arrives when you have all this latent demand on the horizon in the form of U.S. institutions and or Canadian majors. The LPs, we think, are going to turn buyer too. You have valuations which are in some cases 60-70% cheaper than Canada. And you have, as you know, having been just in L.A., the end products are really where it's at. I mean, this is what the consumer is going to, the consumer preference, we think, is going to continue to migrate away from the flower and toward end products where you can eat it or drink it or rub it on or however you want to consume your cannabis, but it's going to be less about smoking it, I think, in the future. And that's where the money is, right? Is the price of cannabis goes down over time, anybody that's using cannabis as an ingredient, their margins are going to get better, right? Their input costs are going to go down. So that's why we're focusing on that side of the equation.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting to me in California. The uniform complaint for most of the operators there is that the market is saturated. I read a story in the Los Angeles Times that suggested there was 5 times more supply than there is demand in the California market in total, and that 9 out of 10 of the dispensaries and cultivators and extractors and product manufacturers are still not legal, meaning they don't have to pay or collect the up to 40% excise tax that's being levied against consumers who patronize the legitimate dispensaries, etc. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what does that mean for investors looking to position in the investment opportunity in California?
California, Oregon, Washington, a bit cautionary tales of, at the state level. And there's a lot of states out there that we think are doing it in a more efficient way. And ultimately, as people talk about the next step for U.S. cannabis, we don't think it's going to be legalization writ large. That opens a can of worms. A lot of the issues I think that Canada went through in terms of logistical issues will be introduced through legalization. We instead think it's going to be decriminalization. You leave it to the states. It's politically, sellable. If you're POTUS right now and you want to kind of sweep the legs of your Democratic opponents, all of whom are advocating for cannabis, you make the issue go away before the 2020 election. You dress it up as a states' right issue, so you save face with your base, and certainly it is a states' right issue, as we saw with online gambling last year as the precedent at the Supreme Court. So that's where it's going. California's a bit tricky. We actually love the deal that we saw, was it this week, on Cresco and Origin House. We just think it's a terrific deal for both sides, but really for Cresco to have that footprint in California through the distribution. And really, we see California emerging more as an incubation lab for end products necessarily than where we want to focus our attention as investors.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I was at a dispensary. It was private. And the gentleman who owns the dispensary told me that he had done top line revenue of $43 million for 2018 in that location, but that he was concerned that the absence of enforcement of the rules that would keep the black market supply out of the equation, was going to be more of a problem for him in 2019. He felt that the absence of enforcement is actually having a galvanizing effect to those who would enter the market without being part of the legalized process, because they're looking at all their brothers and saying, well, if they're not getting busted, I may as well start growing and selling cannabis at the local corner store. So the thing for me is, I look at all these dispensaries, I go into all of them, I see mostly the same products on all of the shelves. So I think to myself, I say, those product manufacturers are probably a good investment because they're in all the dispensaries. But the dispensaries themselves and the multi-state operators who have to compete with those unlicensed sources are going to continue to erode the opportunity in the states of Washington, Oregon, California, et cetera. At what point does the government step in and start to enforce this?
Well, that's a lot of questions in one question.
Well, I don't know how to solve. My specialty.
I don't know how to solve for the black market, cannibalizing the legitimate market. That's going to take time. It's going to take enforcement. It's going to take trial and error. But ultimately, again, if you're focusing on the end products, I think it's less about what you can necessarily compete with on the per cost basis for the flower, and more about whatever your chosen method of consumption is, or whatever your chosen brand of consumption is. It's going to be like brands, like the consumer side anyway. And let's not forget, there's going to be an industrial side, there's going to be a biopharmaceutical side, but I think you're speaking to the brand side. But, that's not necessarily primarily why we like the MSOs here. We're looking again at this arbitrage of price. And U.S. institutions and a lot of U.S. investors, for that matter, still can't purchase these securities. They're not allowed. Their platforms are forbidding them. So we think that artificial impediment goes away over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. It's going to create a lot more demand into the marketplace. And that's, I think, the big story behind the MSOs right now. And certainly, you can look at, and we've done this, and we've got all the fundamental analysis behind it, and looking at the projections and what we think the projections are versus what some of the Wall Street firms think the projections are going to be in terms of adoption rate. And we still think that there's some good value out there. But certainly, again, it's versus 2020, not necessarily against 2018. And that's how we're looking at it.
Sure. So what all needs to happen to make the stocks available to a broader swath of Americans?
It's banking reform. I mean, that's the oxy moment for U.S. cannabis. It's going to be banking reform. And again, I think we spoke about this, last time I was on it with your colleague, who was quite interesting, nice guy. Certainly we talked about the three things off the top of our, of mind that's going to happen. The cost of capital for these companies is going to plummet. It's going to completely change their balance sheet, change their ability to conduct business. And that's a big bull case here that we see going forward. That's a tailwind. But then I think you're going to see institutions, buy these names, because institutions will chase growth. That's what they do. And there's not many industries out there that are going to offer the growth profile of cannabis. And again, not about getting high. There's a lot of use cases out there that are not about the euphoric side of cannabis, but whether the active pharmaceutical ingredients in it, or the industrial use cases. Hemp as a farming as a crop is a very agile crop, and it's going to be a renaissance of sorts for the American farmer. There's a lot of ways to win here. This is all going to take time to come through.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, the idea of the CBD from hemp. So the products that are allowed to be sold in the United States broadly is CBD from hemp, which is essentially cannabis sativa with less than 0.3% THC. Correct? Mm-hmm. And is there a limit on the quantity of CBD that the plant can produce that disqualifies it as being categorized as hemp, or is it all relative to that 0.3% THC?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'll ask my analyst when he comes in. But I do think hemp is going to be, a pretty ubiquitous a product in society. I don't think it's going to be necessarily labeled CBD. I think they're going to reserve the CBD moniker for the pharmacy side, for the clinical side. I think it'll be called full spectrum hemp oil. And it's going to be pretty ubiquitous. I think the FDA is going to get its act together too. But again, CBD is one cannabinoid. THC is another cannabinoid. There are hundreds of them. And that's why we need more research. We need to open this up, and we need to get to the bottom of it, because I think we're just scratching the surface. What we don't know about this plant dwarfs what we do know about this plant, but we know there's a lot of efficacious ability we have to untap here.
Yeah. An article in The Economist today focusing on industrial cannabis, as it calls hemp interchangeably. It expresses that China grows nearly half of the world's legal hemp. And so I'm looking at that and thinking, well, okay, if now the shackles have come off the ability of the American farmer to grow hemp, does that mean that the opportunity in the normalization of cannabis laws, does that actually open up other opportunities? I mean, in terms of the potential for hemp in like clothing, as a construction material, as a plastic alternative, as a paper alternative. I mean, is that possibly a whole as yet unexploited opportunity for investors?
Yeah, I think so. And again, if you remember in November, the World Health Organization recommended to the UN that they reschedule cannabis. That was sealed until February, presumably to give them the cover to kick that vote to either December or May, December or March, as the case may be. But it's going to happen. I think when that UN level, international level of decriminalization, reclassification, whatever you want to call it, arrives, I think it's going to open up the global commerce, global trade, as it should be. Again, this has been unfairly demonized for the last 90 years, when for 30,000 years before that, this had a very healthy relationship with humanity. So this is a return to normal. The prohibition is very much the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah, that's why we get along so well. I believe that as well. All right, Todd, that's a great contribution as per usual. I look forward to our next conversation. Thanks for joining me again today.
Yep, thank you.
I can never...
you call him Craig.
Yeah, well, I have some mental fart in my head that makes me call him Craig sometimes.
Because your elevator incident.
That was not actually that was not the cause.
Anyway.
But did you know that, Ed, that half the world's industrial hemp currently is grown in China?
I just learned that.
Just now?
Just a split second.
See, isn't it great being around here? You learn so much.
I feel like a sponge.
A sponge.
A sponge.
So what did you think about Jeff Bezos having to give up a quarter of his Amazon shares to his ex-wife?
Well,
that struck me as not very fair for her.
I think she's being looked after.
Well, interestingly enough, they describe it in this Wall Street Journal article. They say the Amazon.com, the company that Jeff Bezos and his wife founded in their garage. I mean, if she's a co-founder, which is what they make it sound like, then why isn't she getting half?
Well, probably because she took it to the level that was necessary to build a critical mass, and then said, Jeff, you take over from here.
Do you think Jeff is listening right now and saying, James West, just shut the fuck up, you idiot?
You know what? He's probably deploying some of his covert
drones.
Yeah,
I'm about to get a bullet in the back of the head, 7 grams of compressed explosive.
Pow. Yeah,
Wouldn't be a bad way to go, suddenly without warning.
Suddenly without warning.
Yeah.
Suddenly.
If you had a choice on how you actually passed from this life to the next, would you choose to have a choice and say, yeah, okay, let me think about that, I'll get back to you with my choice?
Yeah.
Or would you say, you know what, I don't want to know, I certainly don't want to choose the moment or the method of my demise.
Yeah.
What would be your choice? As they say in Rush, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Yeah, I think...
that was bad. That was the wrong line.
I don't think I'd like to be laid up and immobile. Like, I've had a pretty good run. I've had...
what do you mean?
Good health. I've had good health in the past. I hope that it'll continue.
Oh, have you had bad health?
No.
None?
Nothing.
Really?
Not
Want to go
really.
Drinking tonight?
Nope. I'm on the wagon.
Are you on the wagon?
I'm on the wagon.
I am too, actually. I'm just kidding.
When did you start? Yesterday?
Now, let's see. Last time I had a drink was...
I'm day 4.
I had a glass of wine the other night. But I've been lightening up.
I don't see the point of one glass of wine, though, do you?
Well, I was having a steak. Do you see the point of a steak without a glass of wine? If I couldn't have a glass of red wine with steak, I'd have something else.
What?
Well, it wouldn't be steak. I'd be like, what? There's no red wine? I'll pass on the steak.
There's something about a glass, a good, like a Cabernet Sauvignon, and...
2 things I can't eat without a good red wine. Steak and spaghetti bolognese. Or anything with a tomato sauce.
You like that? You like that, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You like a nice sliced tomato on your hamburger?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
I just had a hamburger.
Something about a hamburger without a tomato makes me think, I don't know, there's something wrong with this.
Well, worse than that, though, a hamburger without meat. Have you ever had that?
A veggie burger?
No. Oh, yeah. Well, okay. Well, that's a meat substitute. I mean a burger that doesn't even have a fake meat layer. Like a bun with lettuce, tomato, pickles, and onions.
Yeah.
That's it.
Really?
Yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no meat.
No. Would that kill you?
The bread's probably the worst thing in it. I hate to say that.
Probably.
You know,
we should really talk about the cannabis market before our whole audience just says, that's it. These guys are on crack today. I'm out of here.
I'm smoking some pot.
You know what?
Look at JWCA going by at $1.25.
No kidding. You know why? You know why JWCA is going to the...
Well, we talked about it yesterday.
Well,
my memory's not that bad.
That's not why it's going up per se. That might be contributing, but the reason that everybody's talking about JWCA again, do you know why? Because they're coming out with this growth storm technology that makes trees out of cannabis plants in like 6 short weeks. Have you seen this thing?
No.
Well, we're going to shoot an updated...
So this is something revolutionary. This stock, maybe we should be buying it right now. Go in there and buy some.
Well, I'm not allowed. I've been told that I'm not allowed to buy stock on the show, or I'm not allowed.
You just, you pretend.
Nah, I can't pretend. Well, then it'd be bullshit, right? I'm not going to go there. I mean, Lord knows there's enough of that in this industry.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see here. If I go to this thing here and I go here, let's see if I get to there. Nope, not there, but nope, not there. Damn it. All right, here we go. All right, how's that for NDI action, crew? Oh, wrong thing, wrong thing, wrong thing. Make an adjustment.
Let's take a look at the S&P here.
Okay, what do you got, Ed? I
got it at 28. That's the 5-day. We're really going nowhere fast here anymore.
Really?
Well, you know what? We've had a big move in the S&P, but it seems to move and then grind. It seems to move and grind. It's sort of like that's a 1-month chart of the S&P. I'm going to put up a 3-month. Yeah, it's up a tad, a snick.
A snick.
A snickeroo.
A smidge.
Smidgen.
A snicker.
Is a smidge a kind of insect?
A midge is. A smidge is a smidgen, which means a bit.
Hence the word smidgen.
Smidgen, yeah. It's like a small pigeon bit.
Pigeon bit?
Pigeon bit is a smidge.
Is that when you get bitten by a pigeon, it's a pigeon bit?
You don't get bitten by a pigeon, you get pecked.
Pecked?
Pecked by a pigeon. Who's gotten bit by a pigeon?
You get pecked by a pecker.
Well, the pigeon's pecker.
Salt and
pecker. If the pigeon pecks you with his pecker, what are you going to do? Who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters. Anyways, I'm trying to get, can we see my my beautiful garden here yet?
Let's see your garden. Yeah, it's an interesting world. We're an interesting...
All right, let's try this again.
Yeah.
Let's take that down.
Don't mind me. I was just talking. Don't mind me.
Okay, sorry, I'm talking to the...
Under 61 on Tilray. What do you think of that?
161?
Under 61.
161. It's about time it got back.
Boy, that's a big move. What's that up on the day?
Up $100 on the day. Okay, we're trying this again. Let's see, Arlo, come on, don't let me down. Oh, okay, cool. All right, so how about now? Can you see it? Oh my gosh. No way. Boy, I tell you, the technology around here leaves something to be...
Have you heard any scuttlebutt on Wayland, why it's halted?
I think it's unhalted now.
Why do you think that?
I just do. All right, there's the Google Chrome. Here we go. Okay. Look at Ed. Is that a chart, Ed? Whose garden is that?
That's the Garden of Eden.
That's the Garden of West. Now, I want to point out that, remember I put my plants up here a couple of weeks ago, and they were all yellow?
Yeah.
And that was because I had inadvertently mixed cocoa coir with an insufficient amount of an absorbent material like clay pebbles and or perlite. So they turned yellow because they had nutrient lockout as a result of overwatering. So nutrient lockout, is that a technical term? Yes. So what I did is I took the plants, I transplanted them into new pots with 50-50 mix of cocoa coir and perlite, and then I just let them dry out. And they all turned green after the second watering, and I just watered them again this morning, and you can see that they have made a relatively full recovery.
Looks like you've made 4 brownies there, and you've put little mint sprigs on top for garnish.
Well, similar. I made a big mud pie.
You see how
I garnished it with a marijuana plant that just happens to be living.
Yeah, no brownies with some cocaine sprinkled on there. And
cocaine, boy, that's some rocky blow.
Icing. Icing on the.
Boy, what are they cutting it with? Must be fentanyl. Oh my God.
Oh.
Anyway, so these plants now are in their 4th week. If they hadn't been so abused because of my incompetence, they'd be a lot bigger. But now that they've been resurrected and put into the correct medium, we're going to keep an eye on these plants, and we're going to watch them grow. I'm going to grow them for 4 more weeks on the veg cycle before I throw them into flower. But yeah, I just wanted to show my mistakes as well as my successes. But this is basically a success. This is what they call pulling a rabbit out of the hat. When you have your plants on the brink of death because they're so yellow and pale.
So would you say those plants are in their first trimester?
Yes, they're definitely in their first trimester.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they should be in their second trimester, but...
Well, no, actually. They're just late. They're just a little dwarfed, a little stunted in their growth.
Stunted?
Stunted. They've been smoking.
Okay.
Ed, I'll give you $50 if you can read what that says on the teleprompter.
This
Okay, I'll
Durkacz.
I'll save you the misery. I know that coming up next, we're going to talk to Anthony Durkacz, who's the founder of Worldwide Extracts.
But
first, we have this little tidbit. And I'm joined now by the founder of Worldwide Extracts, Anthony Durkacz. Anthony, welcome back.
Thank you. It's world-class extracts.
World-class. See, you'd think I'd know being a shareholder, duh. But I actually haven't even really been watching. How's it been going since it went public?
We've seen a pretty good churn, I think, on the stock. You know, the range is pretty much where our last financing was.
So all those deadbeat weak-ass sisters are getting out and licking their wounds and getting out of here.
You know, you have to shake the weak hands out to be successful in the long run. So
that's right. That's right. Okay, so let's since this is essentially officially the first time for world-class extracts, what is the business model?
Business model is focused solely on industrial scale extraction of hemp and cannabis.
Okay.
Specifically, the target is going to be hemp in the United States.
Oh.
And so the whole theory has been that because this is an agriculture commodity, and since they have legalized it in the US in December, you have a federal mandate. So you don't have any of the issues, you know, the cannabis industry in America is going to be amazing and booming, but right now, federally, it's illegal. So even though it's legal in the state or in municipalities, there are all sorts of challenges. You know, you don't have a banking system that you can rely on currently in the states, but hemp is totally legal. Now what's going to happen is you're going to have a bunch of farmers that this year are going to begin to probably grow hemp instead of other
canola. At $45 an acre versus hemp at $2.5 million an acre.
Yeah, or corn or whatever isn't working for them. Those commodities, of course, they tend to look at it changing. And so hemp has, there's this buzzword around hemp and specifically CBD. Mm-hmm. So what happens if you have your average farmer that has 100 or 200 acres of hemp growing? That is a astronomical amount of plant produce that we have never seen before, because the industries have been typically black market or very segregated or specific, that where a state would allow some, but it wasn't federally legal. Now that it's federally legal, you're going to have a lot of farmers or farming going into the hemp industry. Now what are you going to do with all of that hemp? Mm-hmm. Current extraction technologies that are used in the cannabis industry today weren't meant to handle tons of output per day, period.
Right. Okay, so do you have machinery and extraction gear all set up for this already? Is that what's under construction right now, or what point will you be ready to process hemp?
Sure. So we had built 2 alpha systems, to test out this theory on a smaller scale. Our first large-scale system we expect to go into North Carolina in May, and that'll be the first of 3 that are going to be sort of month to month. The second will also probably go into North Carolina. The third, we're looking for the home. Currently, it's a deal that we have in the works, but we haven't figured it out. And there will be a fourth in the summertime that'll be in Canada.
Okay, and so is the model that you're going to toll process hemp on behalf of farmers, give them back an extract, or are you going to buy hemp and process it and create your own products in partnership with somebody?
It'll be a combination of both.
Okay.
Because there's not, you don't have a guarantee that, hey, that business plan is going to work perfectly.
Yeah.
And the tolling, there are going to be certain farmers, certain situations where they don't have the end user or the end buyer. So what good is a bunch of CBD oil going to do for them?
Right.
That will probably open up a bunch of opportunities. But nonetheless, tolling royalty is a great business. You see it in, Valens and Meta Farms today that are using those systems, and you're looking at, excellent stock charts, and their revenues are ramping up dramatically, and that's a great business model.
Cool. So then the idea of taking all this hemp and processing it and using whatever sort of works to get it out, what kind of size of market are we talking about in the whole United States? Sure.
So nobody knows the market for sure. What we do know is that because hemp, the CBD derived by hemp will have no psychoactive properties, so you don't get high by taking it. Really, what will end up happening is, that market though is with, I think most people today believe that there's some medicinal property to cannabis/hemp, and that CBD is one of those key molecules, which it is. For sure, and that there's a movement for people that would want to supplement with that as a health supplement, but they don't want to get high. And so that market ultimately is probably multiples of times bigger than the market that wants the psychoactive effect.
Sure. Thematic today is this Economist article suggesting that China currently produces half of the world's legal hemp, which to me was a revelation, because I was like, China? Because if somebody called me up and said, hey, I hear China's about to start issuing licenses, well, guess where every promoter in the continental North America would be in 2 days? They'd be in China trying to get those licenses. But if it's already been legal there and they've been producing it to the point where they're actually the largest supplier of hemp in the world, single country supplier, you got to wonder, what is it that they're producing all that hemp for?
So I have a little bit of knowledge in terms of China, and we've been there's only a couple of states where it's legal, where they're looking at the use of CBD as the output. Otherwise, hemp is great for producing materials and ropes and sort of in the pulp and paper industries. It's got so many different uses, but not on the medicinal or narcotic basis. There, it's still strictly very, very illegal, but they are, from what one of my colleagues went and said that they do have very large farms. It's not in looking at extracting for CBD. So eventually, that's bound to come, like anything, and I think the world, but China hasn't awoken yet to to the legalization of hemp for that purpose or cannabis as of yet.
Yeah.
In a federal way, where the federal government is backing that.
Sure.
So there's still maybes and if, but if you went and planted a hemp and for the purpose of extracting CBD in China today, you could get yourself into trouble.
Sure. What does the footprint of an extraction operation look like in North Carolina, for example?
So our footprint that will, one of the interesting aspects of our technology is that we can process wet or dry plant. So it's which is unique in the extraction world for cannabis or hemp. The footprint is about the size. Really, it perfectly fits into 2 containers that you could put on a ship or 2 on 18-wheeler. So you can transport it. It was designed to be a mobile application. Mobile, in theory, sounds great. The reality is, because of licensing, at first it's going to be done probably in specific addresses that an extraction license is tied to.
Right.
It's still a few years away, I think, for the mobile aspect to be able to take effect, where you could actually drive up to a farm and then literally start to take the hemp down and process it right away, where you don't have to dry it or cure it.
Sure. So do you have relationships with farmers growing hemp in North Carolina now who are going to?
We do, yeah. So the first news release that was put out is regarding that first relationship, which we believe will be the first of many.
Oh, cool. Where is the most hemp produced right now in the U.S. that is actually Kentucky?
Yeah, Kentucky.
Okay, and is Kentucky a market that allows for extraction and production of CBD?
It does now because it's federally legal. So there's a lot moving. You're going to see other states that are going to get very active. State of California for sure will be very active. But one thing that and I would say which you want to keep in mind when you're looking at it, a farmer that was growing corn this year and is going to grow hemp next year, there's a lot of factors. Number one, if they're not using the right hemp strain, because your CBD percentage is going to be absolutely critical.
Right.
And if you don't have the right percentage to begin with, you can extract as much as you want. It's going to be at risk for being economic, and so you don't want that to happen. Yeah. The other thing you don't want to have happen is because it's an amazing plant. Hemp and cannabis are just in general these fascinating plants. You can have a farmer that sprayed a crop with a legal pesticide a decade ago, and it was totally legal, and now of course they found something that was wrong in that pesticide, and so today it's illegal. If the plant draws that chemical out of the soil from 10 years ago, you could have a failed crop. So there are a lot of risks, and so I would caution to say that our plan is also to work directly with the farmers to make sure that, number one, they have the right strains that are going to give them the best chance of success, and number two, to make sure that their environments are analyzed properly before they or us waste our time.
Right. I got to think that the farmers in North Carolina who are now growing corn and soybeans and canola are looking at what you're doing there and getting very excited about the prospect of transforming the yield per acre into something so much higher value.
So North Carolina also was a very historically big tobacco state. So there are generations of farmers that were growing tobacco. Mm-hmm. Some of them have switched over, but there's a fairly large contingent already that's begun to grow hemp. But again, I think the key here is going to be making sure that your source of supply has the right has the right supply.
Yeah,
right?
you bet.
The second that you have it could look like a great hemp crop, but if the percentage of CBD is not high enough, you're going to have efficiency issues.
Sure. And all this hemp is grown outdoors. It's not grown in greenhouses, correct?
So there are greenhouses that do grow hemp, but the majority of hemp is grown outdoors, mm-hmm. And that's where you get these 1,000-acre farms and these 100 to 1,000-acre hectare farms.
Right. How soon do you think then until the excessive supply of CBD from hemp absolutely chokes the market and drives the price down to such a level where the farmers are thinking, okay, that was great, plant corn next spring? So is it like, have we got 1 year where it's like suddenly all these farmers are going to grow hemp, and next thing the price is going to go, CBD is going to go down below the cost of production because there's just so much of it?
That's a very, very good question. And I was having this discussion with an investment bank I won't name, and we were talking about how long do you think like today the oil market in Canada, for example, is extremely high. Is it sustainable at these price points? Probably not. The question is when will it start going down? It could start going down today. But it could start going down in 18 months or 24 months. And so the argument has been that there's still not enough infrastructure to make that type of a dent where people believe the demand in the market is going to come from. And the fact that we saw, I think it was CBS in the USA that announced that they were going to distribute CBD in 1,500 stores across America is like the tip of the iceberg. Mm. So the demand for CBD is generally, which is not going to be psychoactive, is expected to grow dramatically. So the question is, when will that balance ever happen? Is if I knew that crystal ball, I would probably be on a giant, world's biggest yacht right now, not in this interview. So.
Right. Okay, well, that's interesting. Now, I wonder if, so there's no denying that at some point we're going to have an excess of supply. Fine. But the guest after guest who comes on my platform says, yeah, but that's fine because the value and the margin is in the value add products, the consumer packaged goods that have hemp derived CBD as an ingredient.
100%.
And in that realm, it's not so much the cost of the input commodity is not really the key factor. It's competition on a different level for mind share and market share based on marketing and market penetration. So my question for you is, how much of that figures into world-class extract strategy versus how much of it is you just want to be strictly an industrial business-to-business provider, and how much of are you gearing up for a consumer packaged goods war on the next level?
So it's a great question. One aspect that you brought up, which is interesting, cost is always going to play a role, right? So anyone that tells you that the cost is not, that's not true. Coca-Cola makes Coke. Their cost of sugar is a very, very important aspect of their business and their product. So cost is going to be king in the end, and having that sort of cost-quality relationship is what every single manufacturer of every good is going to look for. The value add chain for sure is where the margins ultimately will end up, because as we all know, farmers don't make all of the money. It's the Heinz brands that sell the ketchup. The tomato farmer doesn't really make the money, but the Heinz brand does, because they sell the ketchup and they have the distribution. So ultimately, it will go into that realm. I think we're unique in the sense that it's going to be a high margin business no matter what here for the foreseeable future. But after that, the question is, if we can develop distribution relationships and or own them, then you're going, I guess, theoretically, not from seed to sale if you're buying the seed. Right.
All right. Well, that's great. I'm a shareholder, so I'm looking forward to the story developing.
Thank you.
We'll have you back soon for an update. Thanks very much for joining me, Anthony.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Here's a list of things coming up in the cannabis market. Take a look.
Here's some financials that we can expect in the next few weeks. Green Thumb Industries are releasing their fourth quarter and full year 2018 financial results on April 9th after market close, with a conference call at 5 p.m. with investors. Afria are releasing their Q3 financials on April 15th with a conference call at 9 o'clock a.m. Delta 9 are releasing their Q4 financials on April 23rd. And TerraSend are releasing their Q4 financials on April 30th.
I love the
banter.
Plethora. The plethora.
You know what the opposite of plethora is?
Dearth.
Okay.
Thought you were going to get me on that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought I was.
You thought for sure. Finally, that smart-ass West, I got him. He's no way he's going to know.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I just happen to have that word. So there's a plethora of CBD deals, but so far,
a dearth.
There's a dearth of extraction capacity.
No, you don't say.
That's what our guest just told me.
And I suspect this pump is going to cut into that.
The purpose of pump is to undermine the dearth of extraction with a plethora of machinery for extracting.
Okay. Right now there's a dearth of machinery.
Dearth.
And Anthony et al.
Yes.
Al who?
Al Capone.
Is going to
create a plethora.
Go from a dearth to a plethora.
And from right now there's a dearth on return on invested capital for the shareholders.
Right.
Soon
there'll be a plethora.
There'll be a plethora.
Jesus.
That's the theory anyways.
So if the sales are low, there was a dearth of sales.
Well,
if the sales are up, there's a plethora of sales.
Well, if the sales were down does not necessarily imply that there was a dearth. There could still be plentiful sales, but if they were down relative to the previous quarter, then they're down. But they're not a dearth.
Let's say there was a company had a problem, and the problem was no sales, you'd say there was a dearth of sales.
Yes, if there was no sales.
Yeah.
I can agree with you there.
Okay.
You don't mind, do you?
Hard to get you to agree.
I know. Well, it's no fun. There's no payoff for the audience when we agree. It's like conflict is where it's at.
Conflict.
So everybody's getting on the cannabis bandwagon. Have you noticed that? Like The Economist has started cannabis coverage. That's, to me, is like, okay, that's it. Everybody's dropping all pretense about being a moral, holier than thou, high ground. It's like everybody's fessing up.
Right.
Which is good.
Right.
Some of the, of course, we cannot go without talking about our near and dear clientes and what's going on in their universe. So Ed, pull me up a chart of that chemistry, will you? CHM on the CNSX, CSE.
Okay. I'd like to.
The Cannabis Stock Exchange?
Yeah.
What, you can't?
There seems to be a dearth of power on my computer here.
A dearth of power?
Come on, load up here, you.
Boy. There's a dearth of technological availability.
Okay, CHM.
CHM on the CSE, the Cannabis Stock Exchange.
And let's take a gander.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. And here we go. And voila.
Whoa!
Well, I got to just point out this. This is an observation here. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days now where we've got either a big wick or a big tail on the candle. You see that?
Yeah. But look at it. It's been trading steadily outside the B band.
Yeah, but it came back in, but then right back up. It's got a trend line here. There's no question. See that? See that, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah. Look at that.
There's no dearth of paraphernalia here.
No.
Look at this.
So what's the story there, Ed? Does it look like the trend can continue?
It looks good, yeah. It looks good.
Okay, so the trend is your friend. At what point does that break down?
When you start losing money.
No, I mean for chemistry. When does that thing's powering higher? How long can that go on?
How long
has this been going on? Whoa. So it's 60 cents. It was 40 cents a week ago. So it's gone up in price by 50%.
45 a week ago.
Okay, well, 9 days ago then.
No, I don't see it at 40 cents.
No?
No.
Okay, 45. And so it's up 40%.
It's up a third.
A third. No, it's up more than a third.
Well, 15 cents on 45 is a third.
3/5.
No dearth of higher mathematics here.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Okay. So what's your point?
I don't have a point. I have a point.
Look at the big volume too. Look at you have a point.
That's basically all we got in the point department. Let's say hello to some of our audience here today. Right. Before we move on to Chiron.
Any rumors out there on Wayland?
Let's see, audience. Does anybody know why Wayland is halted? If you know, tell us. Let's see. I want to say hello to some of our guests here. Mary Kemp is here as per usual. Hello, Mary. Great to see you again. Let's see. Dave Combs. Don't know Dave Combs. That's a new one. Toro Loco. I like the name. Toro Loco says he's going to get WAYL and JUJU tattooed on his fingers. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. James is in. What about Papa? What about you, Papa? Yeah, I was in Juju, but now I'm out of Juju, and I'm licking my wounds on that one, let me tell you. But that's okay, because there are plenty of fish in the sea, and the art of education is experience. So Faye Smith is here. Hi, Faye. Great to see you as well. I'm saying hello to everybody. The Papist, I like that name, is here. Mr. Green Thumbs 420. Hello, sir. How are you? Let's see. Who else we got here? Oh, well, that's enough. That's enough audience interaction for now. Anybody have an idea why Wayland is halted? Did you hear anything?
Was that a dearth of interaction with the viewers?
Yeah, well, the market's closed, so I guess we won't find out now.
No, they're not gonna come out with news. Well, they may come out with news now. I bet you it comes out tomorrow morning.
Well, that would be normal.
In this abnormal world.
In this abnormal universe we live in.
Yeah. What else? What else can we look at?
Well, the market's just closed.
You know what's still halted? The gentleman we interviewed here. I think you were away that day by Skype.
Yeah.
CNNX $1.74. They're doing that merger in the
Cannex.
Cannex. Yeah.
Oh, I see. There's speculation on weed stocks and Reddit that the Wayland halt is in reference to a potential transaction with a German entity called Demican. Was that, Connor? Okay. So we'll look for that. Yeah, you're probably right. We'll get a news release tomorrow. Let's see. Yeah, everybody's reporting in now from the audience side at the Quest pending news. So let's take a look at the markets generally and see who's doing what and which of the indexes. Of course, my computer is going to freeze here. Cannabis. There we go. Let's get the NDI up and running here. Come on, NDI. Oh, here it comes. There we go. There we go. And we have Firefox. All right. So the large cap index is off by 0.5 percentage point, down 55 points at 11.45 thousand. Midas Letter small cap index is down $1 or 1.76 or 0.15%. The Midas Letter venture index is off 1.16%, and the Midas Letter Cannabis Securities Exchange index is down by 0.66%. So a day of basic irresolution. Irresolute. The market?
Is it not very resolute?
It's irresolute.
So it's irresolute.
Irresolute. It's not, it's indecisive. So it's inconclusive.
No resolution.
No resolution. No direction.
Equilibrium?
Well, not exactly, but
it
close.
seems to be drifting. There seems to be some drift.
Yeah.
Some are drifting.
Some drift.
Others are drifting upward.
Others drift upward. Let's check out the index page on the large cap. We'll see who the best performer is, who the worst performer is. So Oxley Cannabis, believe it or not, I can't believe they're still on this. Okay, so they're 88 cents, up 3 cents to 3.53%.
Are they the big winner?
They're the big winner of the day. Afria
Come on.
added 1.2%, closed at 13.28. Kronos Group is up 0.25% at 24.42. Now there's a stock that's demonstrating real volatility.
Which one?
Kronos. So it was up over $31 a couple of weeks ago. 32. Yeah, and now it's back down to 24.
Right.
872. Hexo lost 0.5%, 4 cents to close at 872. Interestingly, David Kadikel at Ulticorp just added Hexo to their coverage universe. See how that impacts the stock. Canopy Growth Core just down a smidge, a smite.
A smidge?
A smidge.
Not a midge.
Just a smidge.
What kind of bug is a midge?
A midge, it's a little fly that flies up your nose. Don't let the bird of paradise fly up your nose.
What about a no-see-em? You know what a no-see-em is?
Oh gosh, I know those little bastards only too well.
They hang around beaches, don't they?
Well, my biggest and most horrible experience with no-see-ems was in northern British Columbia. I used to work on a timber sort there when I was a youngster, and the no-see-ems were so bad that we'd have our hard hats on, and I was a bucker in a sort, meaning I ran chainsaws and cut up wood, and the no-see-ems would be so bad that you would cover your hat and your gear with Vaseline, and because clouds of them would come at you, and of course you're deep into a log with a saw, and you couldn't stop because you've got production to worry about. So it would be really weird. People would be like, "What the hell is wrong with those guys down there in the timber sort? They're hanging on to chainsaws and they're doing this with their heads." And that would be us trying to catch all the flies.
And is that how that dance started?
What dance? No, that's not that dance. Oh. It's with the chainsaw.
Okay. So if you see a no-see-em, is it no? It's no longer a no-see-em. It's
you
a
can't see
see-em.
them.
Well, you said there was clouds of them.
Well, but that's when you can see them, was when there's a cloud of them.
Oh.
You can see a cloud of no-see-ems, but you can't see a no-see-em.
Okay.
Is that clear now?
No.
This is why you rub Vaseline on your hat, because you could catch the cloud of no-see-ems by going like this with your head.
You rub it on your hat or on your head?
Well, you rub it on your head. Your hat, that's on your head. So technically an extension of your head becomes your hat. Hard hat.
Hard head.
Hard-headed hat. This is going nowhere. You know what?
Okay.
I think
It's
that
Thursday.
we should talk to Rob Hill from Health Therapeutics after we watch this little thing here.
Okay.
Health Therapeutics Inc. is a Canadian licensed producer of cannabis with indoor cultivation facilities in BC and Quebec. The company is focused on developing proprietary cannabis products for medical and adult use customers. Emerald is part of the Emerald Health Group, which represents a group of companies focused on developing pharmaceutical, botanical, and nutraceutical products to provide wellness and medical benefits by interacting with the human body's endocannabinoid system. Emerald Health Therapeutics trades on the TSX Venture under the ticker symbol EMH.
I'm joined now by Rob Hill, CFO of Emerald Health Therapeutics, trading on the trading on the Venture Exchange under the symbol EMH. Rob, welcome.
Hi, James. Thank you.
Rob, it's been a while since we've talked to Emerald Health. You guys have announced supply deals with the Quebec. You have continued to expand your relationship with Village Farms. Why don't you give us an overview of the whole sort of enchilada, as Vicente Fox says, on what's going on with Emerald Health today?
Yeah, well, on the on the supply side, we've had great success out of our joint venture in Delta, BC, or just outside that. It's Delta 3. We've got almost the entire 1.1 million facility plant up, and it's producing high quality cannabis. And last week we announced the entering into an arrangement to get into the second facility with that same joint venture partner, Village Farms. So that's another 1.1 million square feet we're going to be bringing on in the next years.
Wow.
So that's on the supply and the growth side. And we've got as well launched in February. I think we spoke about last time, James. That's out in Quebec. It's our elite operation. It's 88,000 square feet of indoor facility. And it's coming along very nicely. We're just nearing the final phases of construction, and it's an important part of our story because aside from growing high quality in product, it's a real processing center for us. So a lot of our packaging and processing of cannabis that's being grown in Quebec, but also in Delta, is going to be processed there and sent to market out of that as a distribution hub for us. So that's the big news things, and as well, it's been a lot about getting these supply deals in place and starting to serve various provinces and territories. So we're coast to coast to coast. We've shipped now to as far east as Newfoundland, BC, our home province, obviously, and last week we shipped to the Yukon. So. And we're continuing to build out relationships with, as we announced yesterday with Quebec. We announced Alberta. We've got POs with Prince Edward Island and Saskatchewan. So we're busy.
No doubt. So are you finding that the competitive environment in Canada is ratcheting up in terms of things like pricing and just shelf space in all of the government and private storefronts?
Yeah, I think what everyone's finding in the industry is the challenge has been to get the product from the bulk side of it packaged and processed and onto the shelves, and everybody's been a little slow coming out of the gate on that, and that's why, as I mentioned, that our Quebec operation is so important to us because we're actually able to get it onto the shelves. In the near future, though, we will see increased pressure as more and more people are getting those capabilities up, and then we'll see who can get the most shelf space.
Sure. With your partnership on Village Farms has a, they've got operations in the United States and elsewhere. I'm wondering, is the relationship with Village Farms going to expose you to their sort of transnational opportunity?
No, Village Farms is an arm's length partner, and the joint venture that we jointly own is right now Canadian only. So Village Farms is a great story. We love them as a joint venture partner, but they are their own entity, and they are doing some interesting things in the U.S., but it won't connect us to the U.S.
Sure. Does the relationship with Pure Sun Farms / Village Farms, is it provide sufficient cannabis or provide for sufficient cannabis supply for all of your growth strategy?
I don't know, actually. We've been waiting and seeing. We liked what we saw out of Delta 3, the first site that we completed or are in the process of completing, and so that's why we entered into the next phase, D2. We'll see how that goes, and we have an option actually to do Delta 1, which is an even bigger. It's a 2.6 million square foot facility that's currently growing tomatoes for Village Farms, but Pure Sun Farms, the joint venture, has the option to take on that. So if we need it, we've got the flexibility to move into all the growing space I think we could possibly need. But with Delta 2 and Delta 3, when they come online, we estimate that that joint venture will be able to produce upwards of 150,000 kilograms based on our estimates and what we've seen to date out of Delta 3.
Okay, and so what is the primary sort of product segment for Emerald Health? I mean, it was originally, I thought because of your association with the Emerald Health Biotech, that you were focused strictly on the medical, but it's clear that you're obviously taking advantage of the opportunity, and who wouldn't, of the recreational opportunity. But has that consciously become a bigger part of the strategy than, say, 1 year ago?
Well, I don't think the story's changed, but really, James, what we believe is that a lot of consumers of cannabis who are going to be coming through the recreational market are doing so to achieve some kind of therapeutic benefit. They're sort of, they are purposeful consumers, and they're probably going to be buying in those markets to treat things like difficulty sleeping or difficulty managing pain. And so whether they go through a medical channel where they see a health practitioner and go through that formal channel, or whether they acquire the product recreationally, we still see it largely as a medical play, but we are definitely selling it to both spaces now.
That's interesting, because I am both a recreational user and a patient, but you know, the desired outcome in both cases is the same, and I generally just use CBD for the you know, for the nervous system benefits of improved attention and, of course, a better sleep. So I'm wondering, from where you sit, do you see that a big portion of the recreational contingent are actually people who are looking for the therapeutic benefits but don't want to go through the sort of doctor-patient relationship that is required to access cannabis through the medical system?
Yeah, I really do, James. I think that you've nailed it on the head. People just, for whatever reason, they don't want to have any kind of formal record of going, or because of the stigma that they still perceive, or whether it's just flat out easier to head out and go and see product that you can go into a cannabis retail store and actually see the product, talk to a bud tender, get the information from the person who can help you make the decisions. But yeah, for sure, we see a lot of people just like you who are going to be looking for some kind of therapeutic benefit, and they'll be acquiring it through the recreational channels.
Sure. Okay, so what else is there in the timeline, in the business plan of Emerald Health Therapeutics that is going to continue to build value in the company for shareholders?
Well, we talked already about our ability to grow, and we've expanded that. We did a lot of great work last year with Delta 3 and acquiring and building out the Quebec operation, and now with Delta 2 expanding that further. But really, we see a lot of we're putting a lot of effort into expanding our ability to process and do more than just grow, and its ability to not just process and get products out to market, which is a big challenge, and very important that we do it effectively and efficiently. But we're also looking now, because in the not too distant future, we're going to see some new legislation passed that talks that allows our edibles and therapeutic creams and and vape products. And so we're looking ahead to develop innovative products that will address that market need later this year. So a lot of focus on that. We are increasing our capacity and our technical proficiency at extracting, because we think a lot of those innovative products are going to be based on extracted product. We're going to see probably less and less dried flower being taken to market, James, and we'll see more products that are the result of an extraction process and put into some kind of product that is cream or a vaped product or an edible. And so one of the focuses that we've had is developing good partnerships in that space. We announced a month or two back a relationship with an Italian company called Indina, and they are, we think, among the world experts in extracting, and particularly extracting CBD from industrial hemp, so low percentage hemp. Indina is going to help us extract from that using their technology. And of course, we've also talked about Factors Group and what a great partner they are, helping us not only extract product, but creating the soft gel caps that we see a big demand for. So we're going to be putting, for example, CBD and other compounds into soft gel caps and selling that. And Factors Group allows us the ability to do 600 million soft gel caps a year. And Factors Group can handle 1 million kilograms of dried biomass. We've got incredible scale and incredible ability to get innovative products to market through these partnerships.
Okay, Rob. Now, what about the international opportunity? Is Emerald Health planning to sort of expand into Europe, Latin America, or take advantage of any sort of international opportunity?
Yeah, Canada, we love Canada. We've been very focused on Canada to date because there's a lot of work to just get a company like ours up and humming in this market as it's changing and evolving. And it is the world leader in becoming recreationally legal. But of course, it's only a small part of the global footprint, and other parts of the world are legalizing, whether it's, we've seen 30 plus countries now legalizing cannabis for medical use. And so naturally, we're going to be turning our attention to that at some point. It only makes sense. And we will be developing the intellectual property that we think we can export into these new markets. And I think there'll be a lot of demand for that. And as well, we'll be looking for international sources of supply that we can use in that international supply chain. So these are all areas of focus for this year.
Right. Okay, Rob, let's leave it there for now. We'll come back to you in due course. That was a great update. Thanks for joining me today. Anyway, what at Emerald Health Therapeutics, so pull up a chart of that, Ed. Let's see where the stock's been over the last year. EMH, yeah.
I know that symbol. And that's on the venture. I know that too. 439, up 10.
So what's the 1 year performance?
Here we go. It's up now. It's up. Put that up there, folks. So you know what, Emerald Health in a year, let's look at a 2 year to see where it's been prior. Now that's when it peaked, okay, back in early 2018 and at around $9, okay?
Yes.
And it hasn't, you lost basically half the value. Half the value would put it around here. Approximately. So look, I mean, it's done well. I mean, you could have bought this thing back here at 75 cents. Big move, which was a monster move, and then, now we're in indigestion.
Yeah. Okay, well, how's Chiron doing today? KHRN.
Well, that one corrected further.
Corrected further today?
Another quarter. Yeah, came off a quarter. Closed at, I think, 330. There's Chiron, 327, down a quarter. Look at that. Well, look, it shot up here into the 4 range, pulled back here into the low 3s. There. Shot back up to the 4 range. So it seems to be range bound, much like it was in, back in here. Different level. Then it broke out. So, where are we going to get that? Time will tell.
The gap
But
in
look
the
at the
chart
volume. Look
is
at
the period from where it was, the deal was introduced into the. So yeah, if you're looking at, people are wondering why there's that huge dead.
In here?
Yeah.
This is pre everything.
Yeah, well, so they announced the deal. Is that bunch of trading back there in 2015, is it?
Yeah, this is.
And then it was halted while the exchange
Yeah.
looked at the transaction and approved it. So that's the period during which it was halted.
That's right. So let's really look at there. So you can see this is where it was halted. This is where it came out. So really, as a public entity, this is when it started. Back, no, I blew that up. 1 year chart. There we go. So if you look at, if you'd have just got in here when this thing went, and you like management, and management's proven to be very capable, you could accumulate all you wanted in here at sub $1, basically. Yeah. And now it's, now
it's on a tear. It's in a correction phase.
Well, again, I wouldn't want this thing to go below that reaction low. I mean, if we've seen this party before. It ran up to over 4, pulled back to the low 3s. This is a volatile stock.
So at that support level, though, that's the next major.
We're near support level right here.
Yeah. Have you invested in any companies, Ed, that propose to breathalyze people on the side of the road for cannabis consumption, cannabis intoxication?
No.
I'm looking at a story right now on the thing called the Kimberly Bulletin, and I don't know if my NDI is available. I'm on the right network. Yes. And so this woman here is Michelle Gray, and she's been charged with driving under the influence of cannabis after testing positive for cannabis in a saliva test. And she's challenging it in court because other police tests confirmed she was not impaired. So this is interesting.
Wow, that is interesting because
this is a fundamental sort of an important moment for the breathalyzer industry, because if she's successful, the burden of proof on the breathalyzer industry to get, like, if this gets thrown at a court because the judge agrees that the technology is inconclusive or not admissible due to some other technical factor, then that whole industry is on the sideline. It's like nobody's going to fly in a 737 MAX 8 anytime soon, no matter what Boeing says about the software. Just like nobody is going to accept the idea that a roadside breathalyzer test can determine whether or not you are fit to drive as a result of cannabis presence in your bloodstream or saliva.
Yeah. So the jury's out.
Well, the jury's not in yet. They just announced this. But this is certainly one of the earliest test cases.
Really? And now, does this woman look like she's someone that might partake in a little bit of the
well, what difference
herb?
Does that make? What does it matter what she looks like? What does it matter whether she partakes or not? What does it matter if she consumed cannabis before she got behind the wheel? Because the bottom line here is there is no scientific data to suggest that being under the influence of cannabinoids necessarily equates to a degradation in response time or fitness to drive. For example, CBD has a zero psychotropic effect. Ergo, arguably, driving under the influence of CBD should not be an offense in any way, shape, or form because your fitness to drive is not impacted, arguably.
Right.
However, these saliva tests, do we know that they're testing for THC presence, or is it THC and CBD? And furthermore, what if you ate a leaf of cannabis, which only had THCA that had not been converted into the psychotropic version delta 9 THC, which only happens after it's been warmed up beyond 220 degrees Fahrenheit. Like, this is the whole problem with the breathalyzer industry, is that none of that is really clearly defined by any legal body. And so, like, who's going to say what constitutes intoxication? And I mean, like, really?
Yeah.
It's like, I know guys, like I would probably, and I'm going to plead the fifth here, but I know people who, you know, they drive drunk all the time.
Really?
Like, technically, under the influence, they were drunk, but they've never had an accident in their life, and they've never been charged with drunk driving. I have a handful of associates who can lay claim to that, and the claim is legitimate because, well, I've known them their whole lives.
Right. So you think they should
I'm just saying that
start a school for drunk drivers?
Well, fitness to drive is not necessarily, like, I know lots of people, like, for instance, in my neighborhood, who they're not drunk, but they are definitely unfit to drive. Just because they don't know the rules, their response time, action time, anticipation time is like non-existent, and so no matter how undrunk they are, they will never be fit to drive.
And do you think that has something to do with the street you live on?
No. Nothing to do with the street I live on. On any street.
I'm just saying.
There's a portion of the population that they hand out driver's licenses.
All these people happen to be on your street.
No. They're on every street.
Oh,
on every street.
On every street.
There are people who should not be allowed to drive, intoxicated or otherwise, just because they are too dim-witted to drive.
Well, there's people that get old early.
Well,
like, for instance, me. Maybe I shouldn't be allowed to drive.
Do you drive? I haven't seen you driving.
I don't drive in Toronto.
Oh, okay. You drive in London?
Yep.
What do you drive?
I drive a car.
Oh, it's not a tractor.
I used to drive. That's how I started. I grew up on a farm, and I started on a tractor.
Now, here's the thing, Ed. You grew up in the country.
Yeah.
How come you're not growing cannabis?
Because I got to let other people do it. And
You're not much of a farmer?
I'm a bit of a farmer.
Yeah? What have you grown lately?
Rutabagas.
Rutabagas? Wow, you're going to have to bring in some of the rutabagas.
Oh, yeah, I will. It's beautiful stuff.
Oh, fantastic. All right, well...
I'd like to grow some stuff.
You'd like to grow some stuff? Rutabagas?
And some...
Bolivian marching powder?
Bolivian marching powder.
Pulling into the, we're checking in with the garden here again on and the world of NDI. I just want everybody to take a moment and admire those plants. They're going to be monsters. They're going to yield absolute donkey appendages for buds.
I think they're chocolate brownies sprinkled with some icing with mint sprigs.
What? You don't think that's live?
Like, no, I'm just saying. I'm saying you're trying to, you could easily make some brownies. This could be a.
Oh, no.
You don't know. Okay, let's get some. Where's the buds? I want to see the buds.
There aren't any buds yet. It's still in veg mode. I just saved them from certain suffocation of too much water.
Right.
You know what the problem is? I don't have the fan on inside that makes them move in the camera, so you can't really see how alive they are. I'm going to turn the fan on tomorrow when we look at them, and you'll see them blowing in the wind.
Okay, I want to see a little blowing in the wind.
I'm sure you do.
Well, okay.
Right, there you have it.
So when do you think those babies will be ripe for harvest?
I'm planning to harvest those babies in probably June 15th-ish. So I'm going to grow them, I'm going to veg them for the month.
What's that noise?
That's
your foot?
That's my foot dancing involuntarily on my chair.
Incognito.
I'm probably going to throw them into veg mode around May 1st, so I'm going to veg them out for the month of April. That'll probably give them, they'll grow to about 3 times the size of that if I don't screw it up again with too much water. And then let's see, I've got Critical Mass, I've got Granny's Medicine, I've got White Rhino, I've got Black Rhino, and what else do I have? I think I've got Gorilla Glue crossed with something else. Anyway, so I got 4 different types. Mostly they'll start harvesting June 15th to the 21st. Okay. And then I'm swapping out that system for an aeroponic system. Aeroponics is where it's at.
Are you trying to figure out what's the best way to grow this stuff for your own consumption?
Well, no, I'm basically trying to determine what are the meaningful metrics in the different growing systems. So technically right now I'm growing in a soilless medium, but it's not technically hydroponic because it's not automatically fed by liquid nutrients. I'm actually hand watering currently because the autopot system that I'm using, I've been hearing a lot of problems with it. They say, it's a gravity-fed system, but what ends up happening is the nutrients are always accumulating. The nutrient aftermath is always accumulating in the pot because you're never rinsing it out. So technically, I think you have to rinse it out, but it's more complicated than they've suggested. So I thought, well, this time, this first crop here, I'm going to just hand water it and see how it goes.
And you got a little exuberant with the hand watering.
Well, initially I had misconcocted the soil, so it wasn't soil. The soilless mixture I had made was cocoa coir, but I didn't put in enough perlite. Cocoa coir without...
Coir is C-O-I-R?
Yeah. It's basically ground up...
coconut shell.
Coconut husk, yes. So if you don't have the right amount of perlite and or clay pebbles in there, like 50-50 ratio is best, I think, the cocoa coir causes a condition of being overwatered because the soil is so saturated that the roots just can't breathe.
Interesting.
That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Okay.
Anyways, there goes our show for today. We'll be back tomorrow with another one. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the little notification button, and we'll see you all tomorrow.